Animal form and function. In this chapter, we're going to be taking a look at some of the basic principles of animal form and function. And the thing I really want you to keep in mind here is that although animals come in many different forms and have many different challenges, there are some common themes that we see with all animals, and these include, but aren't limited to, the items listed here on the screen. They need to obtain oxygen, nourish themselves, obtain nutrition, which we'll talk a lot more about in coming chapters, and also excreting wastes with the digestive system, and also moving around. So these are just some of these common challenges that animals face. And also something else I want you to really keep in mind, not only for this chapter or for the course, but really, whenever you encounter any kind of organism, a living thing, and it has a particular form, it looks a certain way, it has particular structures, there's always a reason for those structures. And that's this idea of form fitting function. So if it has a particular form, structure, there's always a reason for that form. There's a particular function involved. As you can see here with this insect, it has a very long tube-like structure called a proboscis, and it uses this to obtain nectar from this flower. So that, although it seems very strange, and you might wonder why it has such a long structure as such, there is a reason for it, always. Alright, so single-celled organisms, such as protists, they live in, mostly aquatic or water-rich environments, and there's really only a single surface to cross as far as obtaining nutrients and oxygen, so it really isn't necessarily too complex of a process in these single-celled organisms. But in animals, where there are many cells, much more complex and involved system, there are compartments that deal with certain functions. We're going to be focusing in on the digestive system in a coming chapter, and looking at also the cardiovascular system coming up here soon. But these particular systems, these organ systems, allow the organism to accomplish or to meet the challenges that all animals encounter. So before we get into looking at any of the particular organ systems, we really want to talk about tissues and the function of these major tissues that all of the animals are made of. There are 4 major tissue categories in any body, any organism. There are 4 major tissues. That's it. Your whole entire body, 4 tissues. Now, of course, there are many subcategories of these tissues, but we're going to take mostly looking at epithelial and connective tissue more in depth, not getting too much into muscle or nerve tissue in this chapter. But epithelial tissue, it is that outer covering your body. It lines your organs and cavities within the body, and the real key factor here with your epithelial tissue is that the cells are very tightly packed. They are sealed together to prevent any indiscriminate movement of materials either into the body or out of the body. And that's really a real strong feature of these epithelial cells. What else you're going to want to know here about epithelial is how to classify them. You can classify them by the number of cells in a layer, and here we're looking at the pink cells. This blue layer down here is actually a basement membrane of connective tissue. So we're focusing here in on these pink cells. Those are the epithelial cells. So simple means 1 layer, as you can see here. Stratified means more than 1 layer. It could be 2, 3, 10, but that would be a stratified. And then this little beast down here, I'm not going to really hold you to because it is a little bit hard to identify at times, but it's called pseudo-stratified, which means pseudo means false. Yeah, so it looks like there's many layers because the cells are of various sizes and shapes, but it's really only 1 layer. Now the other half of this classifying system is the shape of the cell. If the cells at the surface, again, it's always the cells at the surface, of the epithelial tissue that you look at. If they are like a cube-like shape, they are cuboidal. If they are a kind of tall, linear structure like a column, they are columnar. And if they're sort of flattened squares, they're called squamous. They kind of look like floor tiles. Now let me just skip back here real quick to the previous slide. We'll classify this one here. Now this one has multiple layers, so again stratified, but we're looking at the top layer. And that top layer of epithelium, the one that's furthest away from the connective tissue, would be columnar, so stratified columnar. So here in the PowerPoint, give you an opportunity to classify these tissues, so be sure that you can identify the epithelial tissue and classify it. Now on to connective tissues. Now this, my friends, is the black bag of tissues. There are just so many different types. And these tissues really connect, bind, support other tissues. The epithelial tissue, like we just saw, that membrane, that purpley membrane, I think it was, blue membrane connecting the epithelial to the underlying tissues, connecting muscle and nerve tissues to one another. And these tissues, or these cells of this tissue, are more loosely packed. They're not real tightly packed. Okay? So that is a telltale sign of the connective tissues. The 5 types are listed here. The loose connective tissue, fat tissue, adipose tissue, and it really just holds other organs in place. The fibrous connective, it's more densely packed.